you, Todd. Thank you, Terry. Actually, I'm glad we sort of Kevin's ended on gratitude because I I feel this is it's kind of um, I don't know, kind of showing I mean, my heart is like full of gratitude this morning for some reason. Well, I know I'm always grateful, but for the Sangha, of course. But sometimes I don't know about you guys, but I get a wash in gratitude. You know, other times I'm walking around complaining about everything, but then there sometimes I get a wash of gratitude, and then all these things that I'm grateful for start popping into my mind's visualization, and it just keeps building on itself and building on itself, and it becomes an overwhelming uh, heart emotion. And um, in thinking about this fifth realization, because gratitude came up, and thinking about this Sangha, and that also came up in this realization. Um, it was just that was where I was centered on this. It was the gratefulness of um, like he referred to it, which I really absolutely loved, and this is one of my nuggets put that insight in there. The Sangha I. Oh my gosh, that Sangha I concept is going to stick with me for the rest of my life. It is so true. I am so look forward to coming to Sangha and getting the perspective of the Sangha I. It's brilliant, and I had it during Bright Dawn, and then now with this, and it's like I had it back in the day when I used to practice it was live people in a Tibetan Sangha. Um, but because it was a Tibetan Sangha, it was more ritualistic and based on liturgy and visualization practice. So there was less of like sort of the Sangha where people were, sharing and helping and causing us to listen. So anyway, I just want to say I am awash in gratitude today, and it's because of uh, the Sangha. I mean, it's wonderful. It's like what Brother Pai referred to about how Thich Nhat Hanh, and I have heard this before. He referred to the coming Buddha as community. Instead of the future Buddha being a being, it's the community. And that's so Thich Nhat Hanh. That's so, the inner beingness that he focused on. So it's like that also is true because I think that's the whole point of Dharma glimpses. That's where we find the Buddha. We find the Buddha in everybody, you know. I had a Tibetan Lama teacher telling me that he this was a cautionary tale. It was be careful, you never know who where there's a Buddha. In other words, behave. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like Santa or God watching you, and so don't misbehave. But there is something to that. It keeps reminding you that don't dismiss other people, listen to them, be with them, and as he said, show up. Um, I'm going to read a couple other things that from my notes that I wanted to share with you because I think they're things that we can focus a lot of our conversation around today and in 2 weeks when we talk about this realization again. Um, Obviously the stink of Zen was I'm sure a lot of people highlighted that as being kind of important. The stink of Zen. I I have I definitely know I, like Pigpen, have given off the stink of of my practice many times, many times, being so sure that I knew something without absolutely listening. It's like the old story of the disciple going into the master's hut, and he pours a cup of tea, and and it wasn't its disciple, actually. It was like a professor or some scholarly person going, and he wanted to talk with the this is a Zen story, I believe, and he sat down, and the master poured him a cup of tea, and he kept pouring. It was at the top of the cup, and he just kept pouring, and the and the student kept saying, you're pouring over the cup, and he just kept pouring and pouring, such a typical Zen story. Um that's the point is that your mind, Mr. Guy there, where your mind is so full of your own thoughts and knowledge that you can't hear anything. And that's the thing. It's easy to say, okay, I'm going to listen. But what if you're so full of the stink of Zen, or the your own knowledge, or your own um, beliefs, or absolute, my perspective is right, that you honestly can't hear. You didn't hear. I don't know how many times this has happened to you, but it's happened to me over my whole lifetime. I go through, and I'm this second book that I'm writing is kind of all about that. I've get so established in a view, whatever the view is, which the view is not life as it is, it's a view. It's what I think I know. And I get so established in that that even though I think I'm listening to other people, what I'm doing is listening and judging and saying, "Nope, you're wrong. This is right." And so listening is a really deep practice. So much so that in Shin Buddhism, listening is one of the main practices of Shin Buddhism. They consider that one of the main, deep listening is one of the main practices of Jodo Shinshu. So, that was one thing I wanted to talk about. And another thing is showing up, just showing up for people, for the world, for yourself. Just it's so easy to avoid what you don't want to be exposed to, whether it's someone else's suffering, your suffering, the world's suffering. Um, Showing up is part of the thing. I mean, if you don't show up, you're not participating at all. And if you want to be helpful or of service, as they emphasize too, showing up is the key. Um, Another thing that really stood out for me is he said the heart of meditation is to open a listening space within ourselves and within our lives. A listening space. That's I love that. That's a practice. It's practice listening so that you don't get into that kind of listening where you're listening for them to be wrong, right? You're instead of listening to them. And that practice works on me more in meditation. I That's my like battleground for developing that kind of listening. It's harder for me to take that listening out into the world, my neighbors and my friends and my family, unless I have already done it within myself. That's why I love how he emphasizes within yourself and within your life. How many times have you, and this could be just me, I am not saying you guys do this, but how many times have you had little mental fights with yourself in your meditation practice? This happens to me all the time. It's like, okay, so something comes up in my meditation. Of course, you're not supposed to follow those thoughts and turn them into stories, but indeed I do at times. And something comes up where, you're rehashing an argument or something in the world, and it just keeps going around. This is the these days we have a lot to practice in the world. So something gets in your mind, and you're on the path of what your perspective is, what it always is, what you always think. You're thinking that thought that you always think. There is that neighbor. Oh, she's doing that again. Here she goes. She's telling me the story about it, and I correct her? I don't know, but and so I've already established her as this thing. I've made her a thing. And then as I get deeper into meditation, something It's really weird. Something happens, and he didn't talk about it in this way, but I will talk about it in this way. It's like the little bodhisattva inside of you that says, wait, wait, are you sure that she's not right? Are you sure? And then I go, no, 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 I'm right. No, no, don't talk to me about that. And then it comes back. And then if you sit long enough, you do change. But I think a lot of times I abort. Nah, don't want to do this. I refuse to believe that my neighbor is right. So I don't know. That's something that I really love. That practice of a listening space. Um, and let's see a couple other ones so open up so that we can talk. I already talked about the Sangha eye, which was really important for me. Um, oh, when we're going back to how we think we know everything and the full cup of tea. Um, in my in my everyday Buddhism book, I in the right speech sections, I wrote about how in images and pictorial images of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they all have these gargantuan ears, like and tiny little mouths, gargantuan ears and tiny little mouths. Um, in my mind, I call it like the Bodhisattva emoticon. It's like because it's just the opposite. What is the emoticons that we use? They're all mouth. There's no ears, no ears at all on an emoticon. They're just these little heads with big mouths. Um, so I do think that's something I always come back to as a cautionary sort of image to focus on about listening. Listening is so important. Um, and this the next thing when I already touched on this is the question of are you sure? He touches on that. Keep asking yourself, are you sure? Um, and the thing I thought about, because he looped into that paragraph about theoretical knowledge. And one of the things that helped me when I was going through my struggles at coming out of um, COVID paranoia is I never asked if I was sure. I just felt I was sure. But I never asked if I was sure about it. And in reflecting on that and learning about myself, I saw that all the stuff that comes up in my mind, a lot of it is crap, a lot of it isn't true, and it's all theory. Now think about that. It's all theory. We can't say it's the truth. I've always said, what's the truth for me is not the truth for you. Everybody has their own truth. But I think a better way to position it is it's just all theory. Maybe we need to be like scientists and um, have a peer review study to test our theories. Do we ever test our theories? No. We buy into them hook, line, and sinker. So this Sangha I is, I think, the peer review board, right? Is my theory right or am I full of crap? So maybe we should, as the Sangha, start testing our theories. Be honest. Say, this is my theory. What do you think? Is it full of crap? And I think in line with that, I'll end with Hahayana instead of Hinayana and Mahayana. Hahayana is really good. We can't take ourselves too seriously, and as you guys all know, I never do. So let's just go on in that spirit, and that's all I have to say.